Coming up on today's show, I'm joined by the host of the Wrestling Heroes and Insiders podcast, aka The Whip Show. He's interviewed some very recognizable names in the world of pro wrestling. I'm talking about guys like Tim Storm, Johnny Bravo, Vince Russo. Stick with us because I've got DeSean Whipple on the 93rd episode of the Daily Wrestling News Show. This is the Daily Wrestling News for May 7th, 2021. We are powered by the Eastern Observer. My name is Ryan Joy, and I'm coming to you live from Minutes to Bell Time Studio B on the beautiful shores of the Great Sacandaga Lake in the Empire State's Adirondack Park. And I'm joined today by the host of The Whip Show, DeSean Whipple. Good morning, sir.
What's going on, man? You got me on the show today?
I got you.
Man, you trying to tear the ratings up, make them go down? Come on, bro. You got a great show. Don't waste your time with me.
Well, the best thing about talking to Mr. Whipple here is that he brings the energy. I was on his show a few weeks ago, and man, just so much energy. He made a straight man like me look like incredible out there. So,
you're an awesome guy, dog. You're amazing, bro. Don't shortchange yourself.
Well, we have a great show today. I want to talk about your show, The Whip Show. I want to talk about your history in professional wrestling and what things that you have done and your experience as a fan and otherwise. And we got so much to get into. So I say, let's dive right in. So why don't you start with tell us about The Whip Show, and we'll circle back to it at the end, but let's kick off with that.
Okay. Well, The Whip Show is an acronym for the Wrestling Heroes and Insiders podcast, a.k.a. The Whip Show. So it's like Brandon. I can put my name in there. And I'm the host of the show, DeSean Whip Dog Whipple, with my co-host, Devastating Daryl Pace. I actually met Daryl years ago at Michigan State University. He had a wrestling group called the Insiders of Pro Wrestling. And we kind of put that with the Wrestling Heroes, so it kind of made a great connection and brand. It's been a great show. We're on season 3 right now. We just finished up season 3 with you. So you are our season finale, dog. So, that's why I had to get the energy out of you. But we've had a great show, man. 3 seasons, as he stated. We've interviewed some of the greatest guys in professional wrestling history. We've had Mr. Vince Russo, who obviously is one of the most what's the pop word they use now? Polarizing figures in the world of pro wrestling. We've had Sonny Ono from WCW, the innovator of the selfie. We've had Scott Hudson, Alpha Jr., a little bit of everybody. We've had John Cena Sr. on the show, man. This has been a great, amazing time. Guys, make sure you check it out. We on all platforms, Anchor, Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Google Play, everything, man.
So you mentioned a heck of a list of guests there. So I'm curious, what's your process look like when you're trying to run down guests for a new season? Like, do you have a criteria that you're looking at when you look at guests?
Yeah, absolutely I do. It starts off me and Daryl kind of just brainstorm about guys that we liked watching coming up in pro wrestling. Mm-hmm. Surprisingly enough, Daryl's a big fan of the Jobbers. I don't know why, but that's his thing. So we were able to have Gilbert on the show as well as Randy Hogan, So that's his thing. But we really brainstorm about some of the guys that we like watching growing up, man. And then, honestly, we just go to their inbox like, hey, what's going on? Now, I will say some of the guys, like Johnny Bravo, who's from Impact Wrestling, or Congo Kong, some of those guys I know from my years of pro wrestling. So we already have a relationship, and they were grateful and gracious enough to just come on the show and spend some time with me. And other guys, like I said, I just reach out to them, man. And they've been willing to just do it. It's funny. We had Hannibal on the show, and I talked to Hannibal about something. And I said, Hannibal, I know some guys pay people for coming on the show, but dog, I don't have any money to pay people. So are they going to come on or not? And Hannibal was like, man, just be straight up with them, ask them. And we really been blessed, man. 3 years, over 30-some episodes with some of the greatest stars in pro wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely. And So I guess, we look at all these different guests that you have. Do you have a favorite that you point to? Like, this was my favorite interview that we've done.
Man, now you're gonna put me on the spot, man. I shouldn't even be saying this. I will say this. Gilbert was amazing. He actually pulled out the light heavyweight title on the show. It was dope, man. We usually go about 45 minutes to an hour. Gilbert, we had to split it into because we couldn't get him to stop talking, dog.
Oh, that's awesome.
And actually, me and Gilbert actually ended up being pretty cool after that, man. And that's one thing I really do like. You interview these guys. Some of them we know, some of them we only know from the TV screen. But after the interview, for some reason, they just like our vibe. And next thing you know, we're chopping it up about all types of stuff, man. I'm actually going to visit. John Cena his dad gave me an open invitation to the crib. So I'm going to go over there. Now, I hope he ain't got the dogs to come get me when I get to the front door. But I'm going when I get down to Boston, man.
Man, oh man, you're going to meet John Cena Sr. in person. That's great.
Hopefully Lil John is at the crib too. You know what I'm saying? Well, I won't be able to see him anyway.
That's right. So, I mentioned it right at the very beginning when we were talking, like, it's your energy and your style when you interview these people. You're off the charts. It's great. And I'm wondering, how did you develop this style? Is this always just you, or is this something you've worked on over the years?
That's actually a really good question. Nobody's ever asked me that. It's me. I will say that growing up, I was a really shy, timid young man. And it's funny, a lot of my friends now can't believe that. But I honestly remember I turned 20 years old. I was in college. I just started kind of getting out there, enjoying life, partying a little bit, man, and just kind of let loose. Once I got into the world of professional wrestling myself, you obviously got to build a character. And I was going to be Black Superman and come out with a cape and all this old, stuff that have been overly gimmicky. And I really found my niche when I became me. Obviously I was turned up, but the same whip that goes to the club and parties and talks to every girl in there, whether he gets shot down or they love it, the same whip that goes to karaoke and does It's Tricky. It's just over the top, man. And when I interview these guys, I want to make sure let them know I respect what they do, but we're colleagues, we're people. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Because I know how they feel when they get interviewed by a mark. And this is not a knock on some journalists, but, when I had Vince Russo on, he went initially because I got him through a connection of my guy, Steve Joyner. Shout out to him, a publicist out in L.A. Vince was kind of like timid. He was like, man, I want to talk about wrestling. I don't know. And you can tell he was a little timid. By the end of the show, he's like, dog, you guys are cool. We might need to talk about being a part of the brand. You know what I'm saying? So I try to interview these guys and talk to them like I would talk to anybody. Like we having a conversation. It's not December 21st, 2006, you had a match, and at the 10-minute and 15-second mark, because I don't remember that stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I like to just chop it up with them, man.
Yeah, I remember in that Vince Russo interview, I think at one point he even said, I really don't like talking about wrestling, but he had so much energy in that conversation with you. I mean, you brought it right out of him. So props on that.
Shout out to Vince Russo, man. People say a lot of things about him, dog, but I'm gonna tell you, I had an amazing time with him, man, and I still communicate with him. He's a great guy.
Yeah, absolutely. I got comments rolling in here. We're a live show. Chris Thrasher, Chris is a host of the Wrestling Paradox podcast, and he says, he loves hearing about new podcasts, and so he's excited to check yours out. So good deal. Good deal.
Oh, appreciate that, man. Chris, like I said, go back, check out all the episodes. We're taking about a month off right now to let everybody filter in some of the old episodes, and we coming back with that season 4, man.
Absolutely. Absence does make the heart grow fonder.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about you and your relationship with pro wrestling. I've read a lot between the lines here. I haven't asked you a whole lot of questions about it, but let's start first. Like, when did you catch the bug? Like, when did you start watching or liking or whatnot wrestling?
So you're just gonna make me show my age, dog. I already got my gray going. All right, fine. All right. Well, it really started with me. I want to say about 84, 85. Okay. I remember my uncle kind of watching wrestling when he would come home from college, and I would just be sitting under him. And I liked it. I thought it was different, man. These big, massive guys. Now, granted, I never knew I was going to end up being 6'5", 290 myself at that time. But, life happens.
Right.
But I would watch these guys. They were just bigger than life personalities, man. And, you got stuff like football, basketball, all that's cool. But I really enjoyed the personalities. Then I remember going to WrestleMania III. 1987 at the Pontiac Silverdome, 93,000 plus fans, and I was hooked. I'm talking the match with Junkyard Dog versus King Harley Race, which JYD should have won, and I'm still pissed about that. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat versus Macho Man, and then my match, Hogan versus Andre, and when I felt the 93,000 people shake from that body slam, leg drop, and pin. I understand when I tell you this. This arena was vibrating. This stadium was vibrating. That moment, I was hooked. I was hooked ever since.
This is awesome because I actually have it here in my notes to ask you about WrestleMania 3 because I know you're a Michigan guy. Yes. So it's on my notes to ask you about this. So you just leaped right ahead. That's awesome.
That moment was it. Ever since then, I've been connected. And obviously, we go through our ups and downs of pro wrestling. But for some reason, man, that's when I knew I was a little different. Because even though it was times the wrestling wasn't the best, I never stopped being connected to it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I literally when I would have a job, I would hate to work on Monday nights. Because I knew I would miss Monday Night Raw. You know what I'm saying? And if you're a wrestling fan, you feel me on that. You know what I'm talking about, man. Yeah, man. So, and when the NWO came around in high school, that was it, man. We were jumping kids in high school, trying not to get kicked out of class. You know what I'm saying? So I've always been connected since about 84, man.
Yeah, and rolling back to 1987 there for WrestleMania 3, Junkyard Dog, he may not have won that match, but he left on top. He left with the crown. He left with the robe.
Yes, he did, man. But I just didn't like the fact he still did the curtsy, man. I'm sorry, bro.
Yeah. Well, so I guess we've entered this subject. Let's continue with it here. Michigan is like a hotbed for wrestling. So my question here is, who do you think is like the greatest to come out of the state of Michigan?
Ooh, that's a good question, man.
We got some really good ones.
I'm not going to pick one. I'm sorry, okay. I can't do that. But obviously, some of the best that came out of Michigan, RVD, obviously.
Sure.
The Steiner brothers, amazing. Sabu, he gets credit. I still don't think he gets enough credit for being as innovative as he is. A lot of this stuff some of these guys doing now, Sabu was doing it 20 years ago. Right. Sabu's a good friend of mine. But I'm going to tell you one that is least talked about, but I saw his very first match when he was on the independent scene, and I think he made an impact out of this world, was Zach Gowen.
Wow, yes.
I literally, like I said, I remember being at Zach's very first match because he actually trained where I trained at, okay? A few years later, he was going to Eastern Michigan. He came down and trained, and I remember seeing Zach with this kid with one leg, obviously, when he came into wrestling. And, cancel culture, don't say anything bad about me. But with this guy with one leg, guys were laughing like, come on, man, this is a joke, dog. What is this? Then we saw his first show, and I remember tapping my boy because he was like, Whip, I want you to be there. I tapped my boy like, this guy's going to make it, dog. I've never seen nothing like this in my life. Zach should have had an even bigger career than he did. But he's still known, and now he's working with DDP Yoga and all that stuff, man. But yeah, I think those are four of the top guys off the top of my head that I think really set a standard out of Michigan. And right now, we got a lot of guys coming out the independent scene that are working for Impact Wrestling, that are doing their thing. Shout out to a lot of them guys, man. So Michigan is still a hotbed for pro wrestling.
That's all right. That's great. So we have talked around this a bunch, and I haven't got a chance to ask you, but sir, you are a trained pro wrestler. So where did you go? When did that, start to form? Where maybe you realized when you're 6'5" or whatever, but when did you make that leap from, the person watching WrestleMania 3 and feeling the shaking of the crowd to in-ring talent?
I remember being 17 years old. It was my 12th grade year of high school. I had played high school football, and I was good, but I had got hurt. I was like, and I liked it, but I still didn't like the. It was too much of a team sport. I didn't like the individual. There was not enough individuality. Like literally, even in high school as a football player, I called myself the Whippleizer. So what I would do was when I sacked a guy, I would take my finger and write a W on his chest. I always got a 15-yard penalty, but it was already showing some of that personality popping out. And I'm not even whipped yet, but I'm whipped. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'll never forget. So at that point, I'm like, man, I really like wrestling, but I don't even know how to get into it. So I used to get the Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazines. In the back of the magazine, it had something, a book you could order called The Inside Secrets of How You Could Get Into the World of Pro Wrestling. I ordered the book. It comes to the crib. My mama looks at it like it's crazy. Like, I know this boy ain't trying to be a wrestler. But, it is what it is. I check out the book. I read it. And in the back, they had like 15 to 25 different wrestling schools. So I'm like, okay, now I know step one, find a wrestling school. I mean, because I didn't know anything. I just saw from TV, and I'm like thinking they're just going to be there. Didn't know anything about independent wrestling. I find one of the wrestling schools that was local. Doug Chevalier is a Canadian destroyer. He partially trained Rhino and a lot of the guys that came out of Michigan, like Johnny Bravo. A lot of guys came out of Michigan in the Canada area because our independent scene is connected, Michigan and Canada, especially pre-pandemic. So with that being said, reached out to him. He was local, probably about an hour away from where I lived at, and I would go train there. First, I went to one of the independent shows he was putting on to meet them. And I'm going to tell you, even though it was 150 people there, I was amazed like I was watching WrestleMania because I had never been that close to pro wrestling. Got to talk to the guys. Obviously, I was a mark, so I was saying stuff that I had no business saying. Thankfully, the guys didn't try to hurt me because of that. Even though they had their time with me, man. They definitely had their time giving me the business. But went on to start training, man. 6 months in, my trainer passed, unfortunately. Yes, he did. Rest in peace, Doug. So from there, I kind of just had to pick up pieces from what I had already learned and from other people. Got to meet Dan Severn later on. He did a little bit work with me, man. And a lot of the guys really were blessings to me, man.
So, and are you still involved in the independent scene over in Michigan today?
Yes and no. I'm retired. I'm 40 years old, man. And I don't know if the girl will let me wrestle anymore. But seriously, what happened? A lot of times there's a group called MPWA. Some of the groups will still call me in to MC and host the shows. Sure. Like, so they like the outside energy, man. I'm probably a better MC and host than I was a worker. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of times they'll bring me in for that. So I'm still connected. I'm still cool with a lot of the guys. And if they need me, they know I'm only a phone call away.
Now, did you meet a lot of interesting people that went on to superstardom or anything like that? Did you meet any of them on the scene? I know you met Johnny Bravo, right? Because that was talked about in the interview.
Yes. Like I said, I met Bravo, met Kong, met Zach Gowen. Me and Zach are tight, man. Met Rhino over the years. Met Edge when he was coming up at Sexton Hardcastle. So, I met a lot of the guys. Plus, I got to work myself. I got to work King Kong Bundy. I got to wrestle Sabu. I got to wrestle Marty Jannetty. Me and Marty talk all day long on Facebook, and Marty is Marty. You know what I'm saying? Hey, Marty is Marty. But yeah, man, and so many guys. I mean, yeah, one of the guys, and this is kind of jumping ahead, but one of the guys I'll tell everybody to look out for is Atlas Hightower. Amazing guy in the independent scene in Michigan. I've been a proponent for him for day one. I'm a big fan of his. D-Ray 3000, who went on to do some work over there in Impact Wrestling, man. Good guy, big fan of his too, man. He got some stuff coming up. He's trying to get back in the game heavy now. So, yeah.
So I think that's one of the interesting things that you bring to the podcast, most likely, and what's maybe attractive to some of your guests, that you have this background that a lot of, us out doing interviews don't really necessarily have. So you can talk their language and stuff and whatnot. So
I definitely think that, man. And I'm looking back now that you said that. I don't think anybody ever got too irritated with me. Well, there was one. And this was my very first interview, and that's because I will say I didn't realize how to arrange an interview. So if you're a podcaster out there, yes, you're knowledgeable about the subject, but know who you're talking to and how you're going to speak with them. I interviewed Stevie Ray of the Harlem Heat. Was my first interview, and it was a great grab. But instead of me talking to Stevie about Stevie's career, I'm so happy because actually I was doing another podcast for my company called Urban Embodiment. So it really wasn't a wrestling podcast, but it was WrestleMania weekend. We said we'll get a wrestler on there. We was blessed to get Stevie. I'm talking to him about, hey, did you think Chris Benoit was the type of guy that would kill somebody? And he's like, man, what? You know what I'm saying? Don't ask me those. Like, I'm like, so Stevie, what do you think about there's more black guys in wrestling? He's like, man, what did you bring me up? You know, it just, the questions didn't flow like they were supposed to. But after that, I went back to the lab. I'm like, man, what am I doing? You know what I'm saying? Talk to these guys like I would talk to them for real. You know what I'm saying? I reconstructed it when we started the Whip Show, and it's been great ever since, man.
Oh man, great story.
So Stevie, I love you still, Stevie. You know. I'm sorry.
Well, he can come on the Whip Show, and everything.
Right, and we can redo it, man.
So you mentioned before that you have always kind of stayed connected. You've always kind of loved wrestling. That's so today? Do you still watch a lot of the current product?
I do try to watch it. Like pay-per-views to come on, I'll watch it. I can't say that I could sit through 3 hours of Raw, dog. I don't know if many people can. I like what they're doing over at AEW, but even AEW got some stuff that still seems indie-rific to me. You know what I mean? Sure. Like I love MJF, and I love some of Darby Allin, but a lot of that stuff is still, but I do still stay connected. I'll look at YouTube in the morning. I'll check the results just to kind of stay up to date. You know what I mean? And understand there are still, some stuff I like, but like I said, I don't know if I can say I like too many entire shows anymore. I pretty much like specific things. I don't know if you feel like that, but
Yeah, I think that you nitpick. There's probably something on every show you like, and there's a few things that you're not gonna like. So you have to nitpick a little bit. I think that's fair. Is there one that's your favorite though? Like the one that you do not miss?
What do you mean? Like a favorite what?
A weekly show or whatever.
Man, you know what? I'm gonna tell you. I actually do like SmackDown.
Yeah.
I actually like SmackDown. I usually try to, at least catch an hour of SmackDown every Friday. I said, Raw is hard for me, but I'm gonna tell you, I'm a big fan of the Tribal Chief, man, the head of the table. Yeah. So I really like to watch what he's doing every week, man. I'm a big fan of him. I even like what DB's doing again. But yeah, I try to watch SmackDown every week.
So you brought up Roman, you brought up Daniel Bryan. I think just because you're here, I'm gonna ask because it's big news this week. Daniel Bryan's contract expired.
Yes.
And do you have thoughts? You have thoughts on where he would match up the best in the wrestling world?
I actually would like to see DB do some stuff over there with Ring of Honor to kind of bring them back up to a level that they're competitive.
Right. Raise their program.
Yeah, Ring of Honor has done some great stuff in the past, but right now they really do look like independent promotion. And don't get it twisted, they still got some great wrestlers over there. We just had one of their refs over there, Joe Maddock, on the show. But it's just, I think he would bring the level back up. I know a lot of people want him in AEW. However, AEW got a lot of guys they got to still get over.
Right.
You know what I mean? When we talk about AEW, if we're not talking about Jericho and Inner Circle or MJF and Darby Allin, who else do we talk about?
Yeah.
So, we can put, even Christian has came over there. And have we talked about Christian since his debut?
Right.
You know what I mean? So I know people would like to see Daniel Bryan go over there. I don't know if he could even do the yes movement over there. But, you can get those matches. But I think he'll be more helpful to grow the business if he could go to Ring of Honor.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's a lot of places where a guy like him could insert himself and raise the profile of the brand. Ring of Honor being one of them. NWA would be great too.
Yes.
So
I'm a big Power fan too. I didn't say that earlier. I like I said, I'm a big Power fan. Like you said, we had Tim Stone, we've had Joe Galli on the show. I've been watching Power since day one. A little upset they went with the pay platform. You know, like I mean, you're good, dog, but I don't know if you're good. You know, TNA tried that 20 years ago, and how long did that last? But you know.
It didn't work for them, and unfortunately, it caused a little bit of a downward on the buzz, I guess. But now, have you always been an NWA fan? I know you were talking about WWE back in the early '80s and stuff, but
yes,
did you also follow NWA, WCW?
Well, yes, absolutely. Always, WWF in my era, in my town, was the thing, but we did have NWA spotlights come on local channel 7 at like 12 noon on a Sunday. So I would catch that. I was always hip to Ric Flair, Barry Windham, Four Horsemen, Sting, because again, I've always read the magazines. So I'm always in Pro Wrestling Illustrated. And if you remember, they used to break down the top promotions and did like a top 10 thing. Mm-hmm. So I always tried to stay there with them, man. I never got to go to an NWA show, and they did used to come every blue moon to Cobo Hall here locally, which is a smaller venue. But like I said, I always stay connected, man. I tried to watch them. I knew about the Black Scorpion thing, with Flair and all that. And then as a transition to WCW, 6:05 Saturday night TBS, I was all over it, man. Once I had an option to be able to watch it every Saturday, WCW Power, Dusty Rhodes, some of Dusty's quotes when he was commentating over there were some of the most hilarious things in the world. Oh my God. So I've always stayed connected with it. Yeah. And like I said, I tried to watch WCW. And then obviously when it blew up, it became the whole WCW NWO thing. It was a whole nother world. But I was on it before that.
Yeah, today happens to be the 32nd anniversary of the final Steamboat Flair match in their trilogy.
Seriously. See, that boy is a historian, y'all. Y'all hear this, man. But, I'm glad I got you here. I know this is your show, but since you brought it up, I'm going to ask you a question. To this day, I still get confused, and I've read it a million times. The whole the NWA WCW switch. I know it had to do with Crockett and all that, but it's still confusing to me how they just the switch from from Crockett to Ted. I don't know, man. Do you have explain?
I don't know that I can explain the whole situation, but I know that when WCW, started to take off, they had the NWA belts, essentially, right? They had, and a lot of the early shows were NWA branded. Yeah. And of course, NWA is, they got a territory here, territory there. And, as Vince McMahon starts growing, he starts gobbling up these territories and they get fewer and fewer and fewer. And then you got Crockett's like the last, major guy standing that's part of NWA. And I think ultimately, he just got he got it at the end.
Now, but I don't know if you ever seen the picture of the video. The one time that Vince had was on TBS. Do you remember the logo he was standing in front of?
It's TNT, right?
No, it's the World Championship Wrestling.
Oh, that's right. Yes, that's right.
So, that's why it was always still kind of confusing to me. Like, when did World Championship Wrestling become not just something to say, the actual brand, the actual promotion, man? Yeah,
I would, if it wasn't a pop quiz, I'd be able to give you an answer.
Okay, cool.
But that's but certainly some great matches from that era, and that Steamboat Flair trilogy is still talked about to this day, and it happens to be the anniversary. So happy anniversary, guys!
As you probably know, that Clash of the Champions actually competed with that Steamboat and Flair went against each other. I believe it was 3. I'm not sure, but I believe it was 3. Competed with WrestleMania, 5? I think.
Oh man, all those early NWA shows. I don't know the specific on this, but I know that like Starrcade and Survivor Series were on top of each other, and it was just an effort to bring the other company down, right?
But I literally think Clash of the Champions was the same day as a WrestleMania, and I think they still did a strong rating that day.
One was free on television, right?
Well, obviously,
pay-per-view. So it's like, man, but they were. I mean, it's funny. Like today, we talk about the ratings on wrestling. We're talking about 1 million viewers and stuff like that, and times have changed. Yeah. But back in those days, 1 million would be a a travesty. It's
Man,
like,
and I hate to keep rehashing, but going back when we had Vince Russo on the show, we were talking about that, especially when they were doing the Wednesday night wars. And you're talking about 700,000 and 5, and we're like, we're arguing about it. But if it was any other TV show, it would have got canceled with those type of ratings.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But they had a contract, whatever. But any other show, 500,000 probably wouldn't even made it to a season 2.
Yeah, no, 100%. So I guess tell everybody again about the Whip Show and where they can find it and everything like that. Well, I got some more questions, but let's dive into that one more time. Let everybody know where they can find the Whip Show.
All right, yeah, guys. Once again, check out the Wrestling Heroes and Insiders podcast, aka the Whip Show, on all platforms. We have the videos on YouTube, so just put in the Whip Show. But we're also on, if you want to listen to just the audio, Anchor, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio. We're on all podcast platforms, man. Subscribe, follow, like, so you can make sure you stay up to date. And also like us on Facebook. We got all types of content on there. Sometimes we just talk about random goofy stuff, just like on our Instagram at the Whip Show Podcast. Random goofy wrestling memes, questions, just clowning, man, just like our personalities, having fun, man. So if you want to have fun with pro wrestling, holler at us.
I got like 5 or 6 more questions for you, but I'm going to tell some people about some other stuff, and then we'll come back and I will ask the remaining questions, and we'll get through here. But I want everybody to check out the Primetime Rundown each and every Friday night at 6 p.m. Join Joey Jarzanka, Ian Schreier, and Rob DeLuca. They take you through the world of sports. Again, the show kicks off at 6 p.m. on the Eastern Observer. And then on Tuesdays on the Eastern Observer, we have the Essential Wrestling Podcast. Every Tuesday at 6 p.m., Al Carl is the host. He's a regular on this show as well. I'm there, John DeConnie, Gary Mahaffey. It's another week of updates and highlights in the world of wrestling. And then this show, the Daily Wrestling News Show, we're here every day, Monday through Thursday. And like today, also on Friday when we have a killer guest like Mr. DeSean Whipple here. So join us every day at 10 a.m. for that. The Body Slam Brigade newsletter, it's a free newsletter. It comes out each and every week at 11 a.m. So it's coming up in 28 minutes. This week I'm talking about all my dream opponents for Daniel Bryan, as well as giving you all the week's news. So do subscribe there. And then if you want to test your predictive skills in the world of pro wrestling, go for an account at prowrestlingpick'em.com. You can fantasy pick every single show, collect points, and play against your friends or play against the universe. And one other thing, we got t-shirts. Go to bodyslamclothes.com. For $20, you can pick up a t-shirt and support Minutes to Bell Time on everything that we're doing. Mr. DeSean Whipple has a shirt on right now, Bell Time Club. I am wearing the Clothesline, and the featured this month is the Crucifix, which I just had up on the screen, so you can pick that up at bodyslamclothes.com. But back to the subject at hand. Commercials over. Let's go back to the Whip Show. So do you, sir, have any big goals for the remainder of 2021 on the Whip Show?
Man, just keep growing the audience. Podcasting is a serious thing. People think you just take a camera or just start recording. Podcasting is very serious, and just growing the audience, taking it. I also want to do, by the end of the year, a giant podcast convention. Obviously, because of COVID, everything's been going on. But, people getting vaccinated. So we're opening up a little bit. I would like to bring 10 to 15 podcasters together. And I'm not talking about the super podcasters. Those guys obviously are who they are. Eric Bischoff, them great shows, 83 Weeks and all that. But I want to bring some of those second-tier podcasters and just really do a dope podcast convention, bring some workers in, the interview. I think that just will be an awesome thing to just strengthen the podcast world. Because there's a million podcasters out there, and there's a lot of guys that don't get any love. So just bringing it together, man, and just growing it. So that's all I really want to do.
Well, that's an awesome goal. And if people are listening to this show and hearing about the Whip Show for the first time, what episode would you say go watch? It'll knock your socks off, and you won't miss a single one after that.
Top 3 off the top of my head: Vince Russo, awesome show. John Cena Sr., awesome show. Because for John Cena Sr., I hit him with an exclusive question. I said, everybody rate your son on the top. Where do you rate your son as being one of the best wrestlers in the world? Like, do you? And I want you to go check that out and listen to his response, man. Oh, he was shaking. And John Cena Sr., I don't know if y'all know about him. He has a great podcast himself. He's a straight shooter. He'll talk. But that was the one question that he was like, oh. But check that out. Listen to his response for that. And number 3, Gilbert, man. Gilbert was one of the funnest guys I've ever met in my life, man. We do a couple things on the show. One of the segments is called Book Yourself, where we take these guys from the past and we ask them a question, where would they put themselves right now and be progressive and a great part of pro wrestling right now. And we also do Mark Out Moment, where we ask a superstar, what was the moment that made them still shake? Make them question, man, I can't believe I'm here. You know what I mean? So we got some great segments on the show. Check it out. But those 3 for sure. Vince Russo, John Cena Sr., and Gilbert. In that order.
Al Carl, who's the host of the Central Wrestling Podcast, wants you to come on the show and make some guest picks. So put you on the spot there. So
hey, man, hit me up, man. The Whip Show Podcast at gmail.com. Send an email. Holla at me. I'm always for being on somebody's show, dog.
You know, you mentioned those ones, and those are great. I listened to recently before I went on with you, I listened to the Joe Mendeck interview. That was really fascinating because, you know, he's a referee, so he's not often put in front of the mic, to talk about things, but super well spoken.
Yes,
he was happy to be there and talk to you, and he was very forthcoming, I thought, with different things. So you got a lot of it.
I'm glad you brought that up because, you know, we interview those guys, and especially, you know, normally we interview guys that aren't under contract anymore. Right. He's still under contract. He was in the ROH bubble when we were talking to him, and he still was wide open about everything as it related to pro wrestling. I mean, other companies, and, you know, sometimes they can't talk about that type of stuff, but he was wide open, man. And he really put over ROH in a great way. Absolutely.
And the Johnny Bravo one, man, you guys were both dressed for the occasion. So
oh man, yeah, you're doing your research, man. Yeah, we were. Shout out to Bravo, man. He's my guy.
So in the spirit, you know, you're on the show, so you always ask people to book themselves. So I'll ask you this. I'll turn the question back to you. If you could interview anyone that there is for your show, who would you have on?
If I could have anybody, it would be Hogan.
Hogan, okay.
Obviously, you know, Hogan was my guy growing up. Even though we had a little bit of a falling out a couple years ago, he's still my guy. I actually sent him a message on Twitter. He didn't respond, but there's a picture of me and him online. And I was like, dog, send me a couple dollars. I can stop all these problems for you, man. I can post a picture, say you're a great dude, that I love you, you took care of me, you raised me. I used to call him my dad, dog. I actually ran a Whipplemania character when I was wrestling. I was the Black Hawk Hogan. But honestly, if I could pick Hogan's brain, it would be awesome, man. I know he's done interviews, but one thing about Hogan, he's a worker. So a lot of his interviews he does, you could tell he's still kind of working people.
Sure.
I would want to be able to sit with him as Whip and Hogan and just talk some shit. Talk some stuff, drink a beer, and just go. I know I could pull some stuff out of him that's never been talked about before.
Oh, that's fun. That would be a great interview. You know, it's interesting. I watched last night, after hours, after all the wrestling was done, I watched the Randy Savage documentary that just came on A&E. And it was so funny because you hear they ask Hogan a question, he answers it one way. They ask the same question to somebody else, and they say, I kid you not, the exact opposite thing. It was hysterical, which just goes to show you back in those days, you know, nobody had the right version of what was going on.
Absolutely. Right. Oh my God. I mean, and because again, they're all workers. That's how they were raised. So they tell the story as it relates to them, but not, and it all, sometimes the story kind of changes.
Mm-hmm. So the hardest question I have for every single guest that comes on is, what's a stereotype or stigma about or within wrestling that just needs to change? It just needs to be dropped.
Well, I'm going to say this only because I was, again, a fan for years. And I will admit it has been changing, but we can continue to be even more progressive. Being a black man myself, some of the stuff they did back in the day with Kamala, Coco Beware, too many times the black wrestlers were under.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the gimmicks were too stereotypical. Like Kamala, I respect that he wanted to be in the business, but come on. You know, even what they did with Tony Atlas when he came back as Samba Simba and stuff. Now, I will say we're getting more progressive now with the New Day. We had the Hurt Business, even though they broke up for like no reason at all, which was like another dumb thing to do. I mean, they were the hottest thing in wrestling, but we still need to take away some of those dumb, stereotypical things. And I'm not just talking about the black wrestlers, all ethnicities. You know what I mean? Let these people just work. Let them work. Let them build characters and continue to do that. And again, I know they're being more progressive with it, but let's keep it going. That's my main thing.
Yes, we want the trajectory up.
Yes.
let's not regress. So totally agree, and that's a great answer, because I don't think I've had anybody answer it that way before. So that is a really good, really solid answer, and you've pointed to a bunch of examples of things that are happening today that, you know, could be improved upon and stuff. So very good. Well, sir, anything else you want to tell the good people about?
Before we go, there's one thing I want to talk to you about that has been bothering me in the world of pro wrestling, and I haven't even brought it up yet on my page. But you know, we talk about the forbidden door,
sure.
And Impact Wrestling is doing their thing with AEW, and I want to ask somebody else another person that's a journalist. Okay, everybody talks about how good it is. I think it's terrible. Like, I like the whole match with Rich Swann, but am I the only one that notices Kenny Omega really and AEW does nothing for Impact on the Dynamite show? I mean, yeah, the Good Brothers are on there, but once they lost the titles, they barely even reference that they're a part of Impact. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't understand why Rich Swann and none of these guys have made any type of appearance or are talked about at all on AEW. If they were, maybe I missed it, but I just don't understand. You know, is it really helping Impact?
You know, I have been wondering this question myself, because it does seem like it's a one-way door, right? Tony Khan and Kenny Omega can walk through, but nobody from Impact seems to be able to walk out onto the AEW show. And God, don't we want it? Don't we want to see Abaddon versus Su Yung?
Right.
Don't we want to see some of this stuff? Like, so is it really, really helping Impact? Here's where it's helping Impact, I think. The Rebellion show that they just had was the highest grossing pay-per-view that Impact's had in years, maybe ever, but definitely a long, long time. So you have that going for them. It does get fans thinking about what could happen. Impact's always been very good about that themselves, though. You know, they have Slammiversary, and it's going to be like 2 days after the 90-day non-competes expire and stuff like that. You know, that's kind of their way of getting, you know, creating a buzz and stuff. But I would point to the financial success of Rebellion as probably the big positive for Impact, and I think they're hoping to continue that as long as they have Omega wrestling on top. But I would love to see them get some exposure on TNT as well. I think that'd be great.
For sure.
Now the Forbidden Door is more than just AEW and Impact, though. You got a little New Japan going on.
This is true. Because I think we had FinJuice is aren't they the tag champions? I think over there in Impact now. And
That's
I mean, even we can kind of say when we had Jericho on the Broken Skull Sessions. I mean,
it's a little
10
bit
years ago, we would have never seen nothing like that. We wouldn't have seen NWO Hollywood Hogan on Crawling with Cornette if it was underneath the WWE banner. You know what I'm saying? So even that crossover, I kind of say is underneath the Forbidden Door.
It's interesting because in that case, you know, we can say Forbidden Door, right, is a good analogy for Impact and AEW. When you talk about AEW and WWE, I don't think people were aware there was a door. Forbidden or not.
Absolutely. I mean, it wasn't even a door to go through. You know what I'm saying? You're right. Absolutely. You're absolutely right.
But yeah, you know, it's interesting, you know, that these relationships keep cropping up. We know that right now MLW and WWE are having conversations at the highest level to have some sort of partnership there. So that could be really great for MLW. Could raise their profile, I hope. Not sure what's in it for WWE yet, but maybe some of their people can get more work in. So
yeah, definitely that, because I actually they have a working relationship with Evolve, and I actually saw an Evolve show here in Michigan, and they had the Street Profits when they were the NXT champions on there, and they had Chris Hero, he won't catch his Ono then, but they had a lot of guys, so it was really a great show, and it definitely helped Evolve. So I think, truthfully though, the benefit for WWE is just to have a pipeline to those guys, because then those guys won't go to AEW. They're already in the WWE farm system. It kind of goes straight up to NXT, then hopefully WWE.
And there's great talent on MLW. I think he has passed on a lot of them in the past, but they went to MLW and they worked on their game and kind of round out some of those things that WWE might have passed on. But now you got Hammerstone and Fatu and even Richard Holiday. Some of these guys that are just incredible. And then, Court Bauer, he's a former WWE guy. So, there's a lot of relationship and stuff there. So, I like to see the companies working together, because I think it keeps us on our toes, us fans, as we're watching. It gives us something to hold on to. We think that anything could happen on any given night. A lot of surprises are gone, though, because, networks want ratings. So they want you to announce it in advance. But but I do like it. So
yeah. I mean, and going back to wrestling growing up, that was the one thing that we had. You never truly knew what was going to happen.
Right.
And if you can get that feel back, I think we could finally bring some more fans, because we sit here, we could talk about it, we could have a million podcasts, but there's no reason. And people make all the excuses, DVR, this, that, and the other. There's no reason. There's only 2 million fans watching Raw, barely, and 1 million watching AEW. That ain't but 3 million. And we know even some of those cross because it's Monday and Wednesday, when at one point in time we had damn near 8 million people watching pro wrestling.
Absolutely.
There's no reason 7 million people should be gone. But
no, I agree. There's so many lapsed fans. They need to come back. All right, man. Anything else you want to chat about?
Yeah, man. Just like I said, first and foremost, I want to say thank you for having me on the show, dog. Had a great time. Hope I didn't talk too much, man. I know I can run my mouth, man. But, man, thank you for having the show. And everybody that watched, check me out. My man that want me to do his show, like I said, hit me up, the Whip Show Podcast at gmail.com. And you know what to do. Watch the Whip Show each and every Friday. We'll be back in 1 month. But go back and watch the other shows. YouTube, Anchor, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio. Dope shows, great shows. Check them out. The Whip Show Podcast, Wrestling Heroes and Insiders.
You got a guest you want to leak yet, or not quite ready?
Nah, man. In due time, We'll leak the guest. I'm going to keep it under wraps right now.
Well, give us an exclusive. When it comes time, we'll make the announcement for you.
For sure. I'll let you, man.
All right. For DeSean Whipple and the Wrestling Heroes and Insiders podcast, a.k.a. The Whip Show, this is Ryan Joy from the Daily Wrestling News Show. We'll catch you on Monday.
Take care, guys.
Oh, I got to play my outro video. There we go.